Rigor from Rigor's Garage and Boat Basin again. Today we're going to work on the 1986 Baja Sunsport 190, and we're going to be talking about the control cables. This is episode 10 in the series. I hope you like the episode, and thanks for watching.
The control cables on the jet boat fall into four basic areas. The throttle, of course, has two functions. One is there is a cable going from the throttle to the carburetor, and then there's also a cable going from the throttle, depending upon whether you push it forward or backwards. It goes to the diverter, and the diverter gives you motion on the boat, forward or reverse. For trim, there's something called a jetivator. In this case, it hangs on the back of the transom, and there's a cable that goes to the nozzle that points the nozzle down or up to affect the trim of the boat. And then, of course, the steering wheel has a cable which goes from a rack and pinion behind the dash to the nozzle and moves the jet nozzle right and left. The jetivator is this little box hanging on the transom. It's basically run by a geared electric motor with a jack screw, and what it does is it pushes and pulls on a cable that goes through the transom and hooks to the nozzle, and what it does is it moves the nozzle up or down to trim the boat. And of course, this comes from a little two-position switch on the dash. The problem was the cable wasn't moving well, and it was binding in the sleeve. The throttle cable worked out all right. I'm going to start with how we resolved the jetivator cable with oil injection, and then we'll move to the steering cable.
So I had a problem with some of the control cables being really stiff. And I've got to give credit to Stu at Dangar Marine on YouTube for coming up with a solution. Basically, I made this attachment. If you take a look, I've got a air compressor fitting right here with a clamp. I've got a clamp right here. And what I do with this is I take and fill this about 2/3 full with oil. And I prefer to use Mobil 1. It's lightweight, it's a synthetic, and it also flows easily. Then what I do is I use this compressor. I fill this with oil. I slide this end over the end of the cable. In the case of the jet boat, it's I basically do the two cables, 2 out of the 3. I can't do the steering cable. It's too big. But I slide this over the cable, and then I connect the clamp. I tighten it down on the cable. Then I take this and plug it in to the air compressor fitting right here. And then on this air compressor, I have a regulator with a gauge. And I turn this up. As you see, it has air pressure. I turn this up to 15 psi. And then basically I just sit and wait. And you'll find very slowly the oil goes up into the cable. Now I use this on the throttle cable and also the trim assembly. It's called a jetivator on the boat, and that cable just goes right through and goes up to little motor on the transom. But it loosened up the cables. I mean, they were probably corroded, whatever, because the boat sat for so long. But this is how I loosened the cables. And again, some of the bigger cables, Stu at Dangar Marine did, and he's got a fuller explanation of the approach to doing this on his YouTube channel. Thanks.
Okay, for the steering, I had two problems. One, the cable was stuck. I mean, stuck. Other thing was somebody had turned the steering wheel and basically stripped out the rack in the dash. I needed to replace the steering rack and the cable. I will avoid showing you the cable because there's just way too much swearing and, of course, blood. Somehow, when you have to run things through the gunnel, you wouldn't believe all the sharp edges the manufacturer leaves, and you've got to wear gloves and long sleeve and everything. So I replaced the rack and the steering cable. So I bought a new rack and cable, put it in, bolted right in to the existing holes in the dash, put it all together, put the boat in the water. Found out with the way it was put together, you turn the steering wheel left and the boat goes right. You turn the steering wheel right and the boat goes left. So I had to take the dash apart again. I took the steering rack back out, and what you do is you take the 4 bolts out of the steering gear and you flip it around and you put the 4 bolts back in. And of course, putting it back into the dash, I find out that the 3 bolts holding it into the dash are in the wrong position. Originally it was like 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom, and I had to re-drill the 3 holes. So I finally re-drilled those and put the rack back in the dash. With the steering rack back in the dash, I put on, there's a black plastic ring. On top of that, you put on an adapter over the bolt, which adapts to the steering wheel. You put the steering wheel on and put the little center button on, and you're basically done with replacing the steering rack. And now when you turn left, the boat goes left, and you turn right, it goes right. Well, this completes episode 10 on the Baja control cable project. I hope you liked the episode. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks, and I hope you're having a great day. Bye now.